Yeah, perhaps the field has become broader. If you see what currently is covered at the AILA conference in comparison to 60 years ago, that certainly is the case. I don't recommend to draw lines between disciplines. That's very unwise. I remember Professor Leefeld, who was one of the founders of the Max Planck Institute of Psycholinguistics in Nijmegen, the Netherlands. He says that scientific inquiry is essentially anarchistic, meaning that scholars themselves can decide in freedom what to investigate, what is currently interesting and important, and drawing lines, then this is my field and it's not yours, it would be very unwise. I'm not a psychologist either, so I've often introduced myself as a person who feels uncertain in the field of linguistics as well as in the field of cognitive psychology. But nevertheless, that's what you have to deal with. Actually, in the beginning of my career, I looked up at linguists and I felt very humble. And I looked up at psychologists and I felt very humble because I wasn't trained as a psychologist. International association was extremely important for my personal academic, intellectual, scholarly curriculum, as it were, especially between 1972, that was the first conference I attended, and 1999, the Japan conference. I attended all conferences in that period of almost 30 years minus one. That was the year I worked on my doctoral thesis. So the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was very important for me to hear there, to meet people, to listen to. It was very important for my career, but so intellectually as well as socially. There was the cognitive revolution that was started in computer science, psychology, and linguistics with big names like Noam Chomsky and Herb Simon, George Miller. That changed everything. I remember from AILA conferences that I attended in the 1970s that many papers were addressing the question what generative at the time called transformational grammar, what its role might be for instance, on language learning and language teaching. And then Chomsky introduced that notion of competence. And then quickly, 1973, I think it was Del Hymes who introduced communicative competence. And then 1980, the very first issue of the journal Applied Linguistics, with a paper by Canali and Twain. For the 1972, my first big conference, I hadn't even completed my master thesis. I was still working on it. And my boss, he said, you come along with me. And there were two supervisors and 3 students in a car. And we all drove up to Copenhagen, where the conference took place. And my boss paid my fees. And I had to camp on a camping site. And the weather was beautiful. And it was a great conference. I remember only one presentation by a person who was at that time a big name, John Lamandella. He published together with Larry Selenker and John Oller. And he did a big, I think we had to move to a bigger room even. He may have been one of the key or plenary speakers. And I don't remember the content, but I remember that he was wearing jeans, which was for me impossible at a conference at that time, 1972. He didn't stand at the rostrum. No, he was sitting on the table with the mic in his hand. Each little field for some will cease to exist, and from just a natural, that's a natural thing. So that can die out, but that doesn't mean that AILA will die out, I think that's a clever idea to just have AILA continue, but the research networks underneath, they may change. Well, fine.